Well, thank you for being willing to do this. I'm really excited about the paper. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I was just thinking what we could do is just first get a little bit of an overview of what the paper was about, and then just hear a little bit about the backstory of it, discuss the concept more personally, because I know that you have a personal relationship with this idea, and I feel I do too. And then yeah, hopefully this will be of use to people. That sound like a plan?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so how would you summarize the paper? Like if someone hasn't read it, but you want to give them the basic overview as to what it's about and why it's important. What's this paper about?
Yeah. Well, I felt like I mean for 20 years now, the emphasis in explaining why people suffer or why they don't get along is because of fear and because they were afraid. And if we could help people to see that they had nothing to be afraid of, if we could help them to not be avoidant and kind of accept life as it is with its dangers, that we would all get along and people would be healthy and happy. So this is called
Mm,
experiential avoidance in action.
yeah.
And this, you know, since I came into this space in 2000, this has been the heavy emphasis of always looking for how it is that fear is driving these defensive reactions, driving, you know, the way people become prejudiced, for example, or hate other people,
Mm,
or fail to reach their full potential, get addicted, or all the ways that people suffer uh, was has been characterized as fear. Even in that book, the Art of Not Giving a Shit, I think it's called something like that.
Art of not giving
What's it
a.
called?
Yeah. I think it's not giving a
It's
fuck.
mostly
The
about
subtle art of not
I
giving a fuck. Yeah.
yeah. Um, I thought it was going to be an attachment focused book, but it's really about avoidance. Ultimately,
Mm,
it's because his explanation is because people are afraid of being evaluated and judged, and that drives why they care so much.
mm,
And it just I don't know, it didn't really ring true for me. And I work with a lot of high functioning groups where I felt like they were not being fearful and avoidant. It was more like greed. It was
mm,
like the will to dominate, to be powerful, that was
mm,
driving them. And in that time, I didn't have as much confidence in the 2000s. And, people would recast it as avoidance. Well, that's really, the narcissist acts like this, rageful and dominant, and has to be the center of attention because they're secretly insecure. That was the
mm,
explanation. And I was arguing about this 20 years ago, but people would say, well, it could always be interpreted as avoidance and attachment avoidance are really two sides of the same coin.
mm,
So that so it took me a long time to get to this paper to kind of finally I guess appreciate what I was seeing, um, which I think is that it's not fear.
mm,
Fear is important, avoidance is important. That has definitely been uncovered, but it's less, I guess, politically correct to talk about greed in a capitalist society and our desire for
mm,
more and our billionaires' desire for more. $1 billion isn't enough. Being a
mm.
CEO who's incredibly rich isn't enough. You still want that huge payout. It isn't enough.
Yeah.
It isn't enough to control an entire social media site. You want more. You want to, control everything. So I think it's greed that is driving this destructive behavior between groups and rather than fear. And I think that leads to a very different approach potentially of how we start to sort this out. Because if it's fear, then you're starting to say, well, look, Proud Boys, you're just afraid that people are going to take your job. You're feeling insecure, but actually, look, you're quite secure. You're going to be able to have, you have important things to contribute. You might have an intervention like that tries to kind of
Mm,
deal with their fear. What if it's the will to power? What if it's actual pride in the name, that they're
mm,
addicted to that they want to be the higher group. They want to be above and they want the other groups to be below. What if that's what's driving it?
mm.
Then it's a different kind of intervention, right? It's like an addiction is like to help somebody with an addiction. You have to help them to give up something that's actually quite pleasurable,
When you talk
fun.
about a different kind of intervention, it makes me think about something that's, I think about like something that's very artful, like in psychotherapy where um, a conversation is being had and we're clarifying what this feeling is coming from, or what explains what makes sense of certain patterns that might be pathological or destructive or unworkable, but they don't know why they do it, but they do it anyways. Um,
Yeah.
and instead of maybe a therapist recasting in terms of fear, focusing instead
Yeah.
on some sort of thing that they're clinging towards. And
Yeah.
when I hear you say like what actually is in play, I'm assuming that what you're saying is that it would either resonate more truly with the client or that the interventions that would then follow would be more effective. Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Well, like take a group that's, discriminating against another group and they're trying to imagine create this power. But all it does is really create division, gets them into trouble with the law.
Mm.
It in objective reality, it subtracts from power, but they are addicted to this idea of superiority. Um, so I think the intervention has to kind of bring in the reality, is this actually increasing your power? You know,
So
it's
I'm
like an
sorry.
adolescent trying to be, autonomous and powerful by arguing with his parent and insulting the parent or something, that they want power,
Mm.
but is the strategy they're actually using actually getting them more of that?
Yeah.
Or is it a bit of an illusion?
I think this is a
Is an
little bit,
illusion.
I think it's a little bit maybe unprofessional for a video, but I think I tuned out when you gave that example of the group, but I want to go back to that because I was getting lost in another thing that you said that now is slipping me that I found interesting. But I actually want to go back to this example with the group. You're talking about a
Yeah,
group wanting power, and you mentioned something
yeah,
about prejudice. And could you give any example? Could you give that example again and and tell me about what you're trying
yeah.
to say there?
Well, I if I identify my group and
Hmm.
my group is powerful and awesome,
Hmm.
I feel powerful and awesome.
Yes.
Now, all this is in the world of symbols and ideas, right? I may not actually be powerful and awesome. I still might be, working at a job where I'm not getting paid enough because minimum wage is so horrible. I might still have, social structures around me that are unsupportive. I don't have health care,
Okay.
but so I'm pretty powerless objectively. And I've been in this position in the States. I'm from the States.
Mm.
I've been in this powerless position, but I can kind of have this idea that I'm strong by joining a group that tells me that I'm awesome and I'm the superior group. And it doesn't
Mm.
matter, what that is. So I get this hit of power and importance, even though my objective reality is still I'm disenfranchised. I don't
Mm.
have health care. I can't live on the minimum wage, So there's a there's this kind of a division between the reality, actual power you have in life, ability to, maybe power is to enact and do the things you care about versus this symbolic realm where, I'm a group, I'm the superior group,
It
you
makes
know.
me think
I'm
about
using group as a example because it's so topical now, but
mm.
there's others.
It makes me think about the 2 years that I spent in Philly, and I had no idea why when I would walk down the street, people would start yelling at me, "Go Birds!" I'd be yelling at their car, "Go Birds" or whatever, and I didn't really know, understood what that. I had no idea what that meant, but um,
What did
of
it
course,
mean?
I eventually learned that it was like the Eagles and it was football and stuff like that, and that's why
Oh,
the skyscrapers were all green on game day, and so
yeah,
I could
yeah,
know when they were playing football and stuff like that, and um. Going about the city, I'm a parkour athlete. I think I mentioned this before, but so I had
oh,
and I
yeah,
recently posted a video where I was like training parkour and stuff like that. And
yeah,
so as I'm traveling along the city with my kind of group of friends I practice parkour with, um, you get to see a lot of different areas of Philly. And one thing that I always found very interesting is, yes, of course, there's the skyscrapers that go green, but more often I would see these tiny, tiny convenience stores with cages over the windows so the glass doesn't
yeah,
shatter, and they
yeah,
have like flags that say "Go Birds," or someone who's just
yeah,
like I don't know. It looks like a blue collar construction guy is wolfing
yeah,
down some sandwich and he's yelling across the street, "Go Birds" and stuff like that. And
yeah. Well, that kind of thing, though, is probably a positive product of our use of symbols, like the way that we can kind of all come together and feel connected by something like that. It's something that's actually subtracting our power. You know what I mean? It's bringing us together. So there are positive ways in which these symbols can work. And
You
I think you're
mentioned,
describing one that's pretty good, unless it led to like you attacking other people in the stands who are not supporters, then it's negative. But yeah,
mm,
that just sounds positive to me. You know, everybody's in a
yeah,
tailgate drinking and having fun and identifying with people they wouldn't normally hang out with because they're all supporting the Eagles.
yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Um, and well, I think that was one thing that was interesting about the paper is, uh, in the paper itself, there's this section later on where you discuss how it's not that symbolism is unworkable, but it's rigidity
Yeah,
that's unworkable,
yeah,
and how
exactly.
there are plenty of situations where you're not going to get reinforcement from more like real world contingencies, I guess. I don't know if real world is the right way of putting that, but sometimes it's the thing that will keep you going or is is connecting with something that's more symbolic or the symbolism can
Yeah,
be used in a way that's helpful or unites groups and stuff.
absolutely. But so attachment is like so the three poisons in Buddhism. I think ACT clearly had two of them. Delusion, which
Hmm.
is where, you know, our ideas of life dominate over the actual life.
Hmm.
And aversion, which is one the second poison, which is like experiential avoidance and ACT probably, where because we can kind of label things and think, we are able to kind of also avoid all those things we
Hmm.
believe or think. You know, we can avoid our ideas of things. We can avoid the idea of death. We can avoid the idea of being powerless. We can, so it's not just avoiding actual physical things, but our ideas of the world is massively interpreted. We're massively inside the matrix of interpretations, and so little of our life is spent in gravity, touching physical things. You know, we're so lost in an interpreted world, and then we can avoid things in that interpreted world that makes our life shrink.
Yeah,
So I
it's
think
avoidance.
in a materialistic society like ours, we pulled delusion and avoidance from Buddhism, and mindfulness-based approaches, all that focus on that. But it's interesting. I mean, that, attachment wasn't taken with it. Like that is the third poison. That's really important, that one. And I pretty much, I mean, the paper was an attempt to ground this in science, not to base it on Buddhism. Um, so we grounded it in relational frame theory. But it seems striking that attachment and greed was not as much of a focus for psychotherapy for, you know, the problems. It was as if we
Yeah,
were, greed is good um, meme from that 1980s movie on
yeah.
Wall Street. Was it Wall Street?
It was,
Yeah,
well, no, I thought it was a Mad Men or something. I have no idea actually. I have no
I
idea.
think it's Wall. Yeah. Anyway, greed is good. Uh,
Could be Wolf of Wall Street. But anyways, I mean I was noticing that too, where it typical syndromal major syndromal categories like um, depression or social anxiety disorder or PTSD, you can find all these different examples of like avoidance behaviors that are
yeah,
unworkable.
abs
But when I looked at your website or looked at some of the examples listed in the paper, I'm seeing things like likes on social media or,
yeah,
chasing like status or prestige or buying things and buying things
yeah,
and over consuming and these are behaviors that are more socially acceptable, it's
absolutely. I mean,
more
it's okay
socially
for the
acceptable than
billionaire
just
to have another $1 billion. It's okay to buy, and as a matter of fact, it's encouraged to spend your weekends in the shopping mall.
mm,
That's a major outing. As we get older, the attachment becomes to being young still. So this is
mm,
my phase of life. You go, okay, I'm getting older, but I want to be young, right? So I'm attached to that idea. And so what does that lead me to do? Well, maybe I could get Botox. I could just deny that I'm old. I could
mm,
leave my wife and marry a 20-year-old to convince myself I'm young still. Like these are the kind of common things that happen, right? These are
mm,
really destructive things. It's not, I don't believe that's experiential avoidance. I mean, it's in there. You don't want to, you could say, well, it's about, I don't want to, I'm afraid of getting older, but I'm also attached to being young.
mm,
And I think they're different.
mm,
I think that we know that there are two very different biological systems. One is about more like avoidance behavioral inhibition system, about avoiding and detecting threat. And one is more like approach oriented, reward seeking. And that is where anger is.
mm,
Anger is an approach emotion. It's not an avoidant emotion,
mm,
And so there's a lot when you start, that's why I can't wait to see what the community does with this idea, because I think they'll start to create and see it everywhere. In the same way we didn't see experiential avoidance, right? And then ACT came along and really laid it out in a very clear theory. It wasn't just, in religious texts now. And we started to see it everywhere. And it was everywhere. I think experiential attachment will be the same thing. People will start to see it everywhere, start to research it. You have seeking approval, validation, seeking status, trying to be liked. How about always chasing more, always living for a better future, always living for that?
So
Hoarding,
one thing
outrage addiction, all these
one thing
things.
that I thought was interesting that was mentioned in the paper was in the limitation section was some of the difficulties around distinguishing the difference between uh, aversive control or avoidance and then
Yeah,
appetitive control and attachment.
yep,
Um, and I have a personal example of this for myself, and I was wondering if I
okay,
could share this with you.
sure.
So, uh, uh, on January 17th of last year, I made my last TikTok video. And are you familiar with the TikTok thing that I ran? I
Oh
basically
yeah,
use
yeah, I
like
remember.
CBS methods, like ACT and stuff like that, to try and help people either get off their phones or build better
Yeah,
relationships with their phones. And
yep,
uh, so I'd like taken my break, and then uh, January 17th of this year, so yesterday, I made three videos that I was going to pin at the top of my profile, and I did.
yep,
Um, that were basically announcing that I wanted to go back into the work, but that I wanted to do things differently.
yeah,
And um, in these videos, what I wanted to do was I wanted to give people an introduction to what this is about and almost in a way, kind of like give an informed consent. I just wanted to be as responsible as I could with it. I wanted to tell people what they're getting into. I wanted them to know what training I did have, but also know what training I didn't and how this isn't therapy. And I just wanted to do this the most responsible way as possible.
yeah, yeah,
And like I'm not even taking any money from it. Like if I go live, I'm
yeah,
turning gifts off, and all the money that I'm gonna make from it, I'm gonna donate to charity. And I'm like,
yeah.
um, and I just noticed that these videos that I'd filmed, they I had three videos I was gonna work out, and um, they're all like 10 minutes long, and I just could
Yeah,
not cut them down. And
yeah.
because I for me, I can get into a more mindful space when I'm talking with people about my ideas, and then I get in front of the camera, and it's like I just need to tell everyone how much I'm trying to do this well, you know? And I
Yeah,
think of my
yeah,
heroes, like I told you about Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers'
yeah,
Neighborhood. I mean, he was just
yeah,
so profoundly principled with how his
yeah.
content would impact others, but he did so in an elegant way. And so I don't know. I look at that and I struggle to know what that is. Maybe I'm avoiding this like I'm trying to avoid this possibility of me like harming people or hurting people. And I know that so well. I know what it's like to hurt people. I know what it's like to break things. Um,
So you're worried that your videos are going to be used incorrectly or something like
Maybe,
that?
yeah. Or that like I'm gonna make videos that instead of being helpful are just getting people addicted to me or get addicted to their phones, or instead of it's like I'm being helpful and it's
Yeah,
like a popularity contest buy my book thing. And so I just don't want to
yeah.
do that. And so maybe it's like an avoidance. I don't want to be I look at influencers and I look at people, whatever they're doing on social media these days, and my heart breaks.
Mm.
I I suffer when I think about what we're learning.
Yeah,
But I could also totally see it be an attachment thing. I mean, I think about Fred all the
yeah,
time and just how wise he was as a person. And so maybe I'm trying to be him or Joe or Stephen Hayes or Mavis Sai or and so
yeah,
both of those ideas feel really resonant and I kind of struggle to
yeah,
parse it out.
yeah. I guess it's what we have to ask is, what do you want out of this situation? Like, what do you care about? That's where we got to start. And then I think we can get a better understanding of,
I want to help people.
so yeah. And so you're hesitating to put these videos out, but you're also having trouble cutting them down.
I put the videos out. I was gonna do it no
Oh,
matter
you
what.
did.
I lost my I'd worked for like 10 hours on it and I lost my
Yeah.
lighting and it didn't matter. I was going to film it anyways. So I
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah. Oh,
But
you put it out. Okay.
I mean, thinking about it for the rest, like for the next hour or two and having to watch them over again, I just like was super
Yeah.
critical and suffering. I was just suffering, right? Thinking about all the
Yeah.
things I
Yeah.
did wrong and I could have done better and da 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 da.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's obviously
I
very
think that
personal.
pool you're feeling, that's good. Like the awareness that there's a pool to be like that, like the hero, to be a hero. I don't think that's attachment though, but you're going to get pulled by that. And there's going to be times when you are a bit avoidant. It's just when it's starts to become such a rigid pattern that it dominates. And
Mm,
say that's all you're doing is trying to put out content to get likes, even though the
mm.
quality is going down. Maybe, you're that would be where it becomes attachment, where
Yeah,
it
I
starts to
guess this
actually
wouldn't be a great
damage.
example. I don't think this would be a great example of a really maladaptive pattern. I like made a commitment and I did it and I
And it's okay to have ideals and be attached. And that's like everything we've ever done to transcend our shitty environment has been imagined first, right? We
mm,
imagine it and we see ourselves as a hero in the story a lot of times. That's okay. That's not an attachment. That's like, if it leads to transformation of you and the world, that's awesome.
mm.
But it's when you're living inside that fantasy and nothing's actually happening. You know
I
what I mean?
guess
Or you're doing things that make life worse for yourself and for
yeah.
the world.
There's
Then that's
There's
yeah.
definitely a workability consideration here. I guess I just think about, I think that this could be a workable concept to have um, uh, a more technical or I don't want to say mechanical, like mechanistic, but like a more detailed understanding of what it is. And so, like for example,
Yeah.
I recently had a video on parkour and it was made for just ACBS people. It was just like
Okay.
it was the only point of it. And so I talked about the difference between like intellectual knowing, like concepts, blah, 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 talking, and then like
Yeah.
knowing in practice. You do the jump, you make the
Yeah.
run up the wall, whatever it is,
It's
and how
terrifying. Yeah.
different that is in parkour. And the video
Yeah.
is at something like 30,000 views, something like that. Which
Oh
is a
wow.
lot more than what I'd wanted or like expected
Yeah.
at least. And
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well
I
done.
remember thinking like, man, like maybe the next video I post for ACBS, I should leave it unlisted for a month and then I'll release it to the public because I just wanted it to be ACBS. I don't want the popularity. I don't want the numbers. I don't want
Yeah.
like
Oh, why not though?
because it's not what I'm trying to do. I want to
But
make
if it
content for
that, that
people
that's
in
not
ACBS.
attachment. That's
Hmm?
not attachment then. That's not attachment. If that's not what you're trying to do, there's no attachment there.
Okay,
To get popular, that's awesome. I mean,
so
more voice, more influence, that's good. People like what you're doing. I think that's awesome.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
attachment.
Well, I think a lot of people think that's awesome, but it's not. I mean, I have this TikTok profile with 250,000 followers, and like, so I know what it's like to have numbers, but that's like, for me, for those videos, what I wanted was to, if I had a video with 150 views, but 150 ACBS members watched it, that's so much more important to me when I consider my values as to why I'm making that content than having 150,000 views, but only 15 people from ACBS watched it or considered it.
Yeah.
Does that make
Why do
sense?
you favor ACBS people? I mean, I love them too, but why?
Well,
Why favor them?
those are my values when it comes to this channel, is I want to be a part of this community and I want to contribute, and that's why I'm
Okay.
making this. You know, if I wanted to make views, the next video I should post to my channel would be not an hour-long discussion with a professor on a technical paper, right?
True. True. We're gonna get like 7 views, but that's all right.
But
I
so
think
I guess what I'm mentioning there with that example is that there's a pull there. And I'm not going to
yeah.
do anything with it. I don't think it's functional for me to start making videos unlisted and then start talking to ACBS about
Yeah, it'd
my
be very
um
seductive, wouldn't it? Like, yeah, God. Okay, you got the parkour reinforcement. Holy moly. So you're gonna be pulled to make another one of
no,
those.
no, no, no,
Even
no.
more
You're
parkour.
misunderstanding. It's the opposite, Joe. It's the
No,
opposite.
no, I know, no, no. I don't mean you're gonna do it. I mean that, see, that's the thing. It's just like
No, the pull, no, I'm telling you though,
feeling
the
fe
pull is the opposite. The pull is that I
pulls
want
not
to
to do it.
avoid that because I'm like attached to non-attachment or something. I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
But
That is
so but this
unusual. Yeah.
so this is the point though. The point is that I'm not going to do anything with it there. But I think with that example, I don't know, it's hard for me to parse out if I'm avoiding popularity or if I'm attached to an idea of of my values and
Yeah.
ACBS. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I don't think you have to sort it out. I think that you're aware of the pull and the avoidance. You're aware of both of those feelings in you
Hmm.
is step one to
Mm,
non-attachment. So you know that there could be a pull to, I guess it's an odd pull. I have not heard that kind of addiction where you don't want to be popular. It must be one of the most unusual addictions on earth. If you wrote a book on the not being popular addiction, it would be like set you and four other people. But
yeah.
maybe not though. It'd be interesting. Maybe there'd be a whole kind of special group of people who just don't want to be popular joining together. And
Well, I
it's
think
an
that that's
interesting
where
thing.
I don't think it's, yeah, I think it's like that's where the attachment things make sense because it feels very storied. It's not, I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have any, like, you can tell, I think, that I don't have much inhibitions when it comes to reaching out. My problem, my CRB1, my stuck behavior is I'll walk into a room and make it all about the Ben show and just without noticing it,
Yeah,
silence everyone else because it's all about me. So I
yeah,
know that I do that. Um, and ACBS has seen me do that dysfunctionally and quite constructively,
yeah,
I've had to learn how to be
yep,
more in community. So it's not that I don't like popularity or that I can't handle it or that I'm afraid of it or these kinds of things, but
yeah.
it's very much oriented around um, uh, wanting to get it right.
Yeah, so
Wanting
you
to
have
get it
this kind of
right.
ideal image, and you are in this ideal image of yourself. You're not like those other people who are just chasing masses of popularity.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
can't be them, Joe. I cannot be
Yeah,
them.
I understand.
And am
Yeah,
is it that I'm avoiding those people that drive me up a wall who had
yeah,
some idea in some car and now they're like telling you that they can cure your depression in 3 minutes? Or
yeah,
is it that I'm seeking out something else? You know, I'm like seeking out
yeah.
approval from you or from Stephen Hayes, where psychologists can view my content, and even the most hard-knuckled
Mm.
randomized control trial nose up their ass, evidence-based psychotherapy researchers can be like, okay, this kid's done his homework. What am I
Yeah.
what am I
Yeah.
doing?
So I mean, I guess the question is because that's hard. That's hard. It gets all those different things you're aware of. That's pretty powerful and very useful for you because you feel the pulls for avoidance and attachment to that image of I'm
Yeah.
not like those influencers. I'm not just chasing popularity and talking shit. I'm having a deep 1 hour conversation that nobody's going to listen to. So, but I think the main thing to get clear on is in the physical reality, what changes do you want to bring? What would you
That's a great
see in
question.
physical reality if you were living your values? And if you
Mm,
have a clear idea of that, then we can start to talk about whether things interfere or not. But
mm.
without that, and that's
Personally, I
maybe
just
that's
think
what
it's
makes
beautiful. Thank
attachment
you.
kind of complicated because values and attachment can look kind of similar.
Mm. Ooh.
Yeah.
Huh.
I think that's what makes it complicated because we're always so focused on shifting from aversive to appetitive. It's a fairly simple move and act. That shift. I mean, not simple, but I mean it's clear to me. But what if it's too appetitive and they're saying, no, actually I do value being really popular and but you can see that they're giving up so much for that other values. So it's
Mm.
make things a little complicated, yeah.
Yeah, this
But I
idea
think
that
getting clear
freedom
on what
is,
you want to achieve,
yeah, that
what you
that
love doing.
mm,
Yeah.
this idea that like choice is freedom from aversive control.
Yeah.
Well, I remember saying that to a friend who's not a behaviorist, not really exposed to any of this stuff, and it was just like, well, I feel like appetitive control can be pretty controlling too. Like I feel like that can be pretty
Absolutely.
damaging. You know?
I agree. That was the way it's been defined for a while, actually. That's a good point, that it's freedom from aversive control. But in our, I think addiction has just been ramped up with the internet. Like this has become even more clear that there are behavioral addictions that people aren't in control, but they feel like it's appetitive. They feel like, yes, I'm fighting for my group,
Mm.
or I'm fighting to stay young, or I'm fighting to be right because it's important to be right. You could say those all sound like kind of like values. I'm fighting to have the good things in life, status
You're not fighting
consumption,
to be young. You just care about self-care, Joe. You know?
Yeah, see,
That
you can flip it.
Botox
You
is a
could flip it.
towards move, right?
Yeah, that's right. You
Yeah.
could flip it, but I could get so extreme in this kind of trying to be young that I start to do destructive things. So, but at some point, it is values. It's like I'm exercising, I'm doing things to stay young because I'm attached to being young. That's good.
Mm.
But it becomes rigid when it becomes like I'm destroying my relationships, I'm destroying myself, I'm blowing up my life, like midlife crisis stuff where you just say, "Oh God, I'm running out of time. I'm getting old. I've got to change something."
Mm.
Yeah,
I feel like the non-attachment as a concept is just really powerful. It's really it speaks to me. But one thing I struggle with is seeing how then it's going to fit in with this larger vision of process-based therapy, where it actually improves outcomes. You know, it actually like it's not just another modality. Because God, we see another modality and another modality. It's your body, it's the buzz, it's
yeah.
avoidance, it's your thoughts, it's mindfulness. It's oh my gosh, it's not attachment now. Great. And we're gonna do a
No, but it's
randomized
not.
control
Yeah,
trial. We're gonna get all excited, and they're gonna have the exact same effect sizes as everything else. And then we're gonna go,
yeah, yeah. Well, you can't. Don't see it as a technology or a preparation. Like if really core processes are fusion or delusion, the, like the ability to have a symbolic representation of the world that feels like it's real.
"Mhm, sure, sure, sure.
And that symbolic representation is so powerful that it is real. It's as if you're acting as if it's real.
Yeah.
So that's delusion.
So
And then
from a
aversion.
process-based perspective, how does non-attachment fit into how we're going to increase effect sizes?
Yes, so if so you have let's say three really fundamental things: delusion, aversion, and attachment.
Sure.
And everything can be understood in terms of those things to some extent. Then what if some things are much more of an attachment related thing, like the preparations that we use for helping with avoidance may not work as well. See, I don't know. This is like new.
We don't
So
have
we
evidence. Do
haven't
we
done
have
the
evidence of
comparisons
that
yet.
or no, right?
We have evidence. There's some evidence that experiential attachment is different from experiential avoidance and predicts different things. But in terms of like having an attachment, if you, let's say we need an intervention where I'm saying, well, that's not avoidance, that's attachment. And then we give them both an avoidance and attachment intervention. And we prove that the attachment intervention was better. You need something like that. It's new. We don't have
Yeah,
that
and
yet.
and
So
that's this, and I don't think it's fair to give non-attachment this criticism because I think basically all of the processes we're talking about, like the importance of idiographic research, and then we're like, well, but non-attachment does predict differently than avoidance does
yeah,
nomothetically, right? So
yeah,
we're talking about processes in an entirely different way
yeah.
when we're looking at the research that already exists. So I think to be fair to non-attachment, I don't think fusion should get any more kind of kudos or brownie points or avoidance or whatever it is if it's not being evaluated in these kind of more personalized ways.
It
But
is tricky. The horse race model is also very tricky because this is all an interconnected network. So it's not either fusion or attachment or either avoidance and attachment. A lot of times they're all happening with a person, like what you just described. So the real question is it something like if we target it first for some people,
mm,
because that's really the thing that's going to cause the most movement. How do we know that? Can we demonstrate that it should be targeted, say, before avoidance or fusion? I don't know. I'm just making this up, spitballing, but
yeah, it's like a
the
functional
idea of
analysis
the
on the
process,
scientist. It's like a functional
yeah,
analysis on the scientist where they're looking for prediction and influence. That's the consequence, and we're looking for antecedents where then the scientist can do a certain behavior, and then the consequence will be better effect sizes. And so we're
yes,
looking for our little
absolutely.
targets, our little
And it
antecedents.
isn't like, and that was one of the things about that paper that was really important. I mean, we said it in RFT, so it's not a new theory. It's relational frame theory, and it follows from a relational frame theory very clearly that if there's transformation of stimulus function, that just means symbols get powerful
Hmm.
emotionally,
Hmm.
as if they're the real thing.
Hmm.
The idea of dying is invokes fear in the way that an actual threat of being killed does. So symbols have the power. Then we have the avoidance means you can avoid that symbolic reality. I'm aware of my immortality. I want to avoid it. But that's no other nonverbal animal does that because they can't represent this idea of mortality. It's a symbol. But it follows that if symbols can be powerful and scary, they can also be powerful and attractive. It just simply follows from RFT. It has to be true if RFT is right. Like there has to be attachment as well as avoidance. And so from that paper actually walks you through a process-based approach where even though I'm talking about non-attachment, which is kind of novel, um, the interventions I describe are very familiar to people.
Yeah.
People are going to understand what I'm saying. It's not like we're going to like if you do look at some interventions, they'll use different names and terms. With process-based approach, we can frame it in a way that you're like, okay, I this is familiar to me. I know how to do these things. Now, how would I turn that to somebody who was attached rather than avoidant? So mindfulness-based approaches. Like there's evidence that you could do mindfulness in a way that promotes attachment. So people become
Yes.
egoic and like I'm the best
Yes.
meditator in the I'm the best meditator in the ashram, or I'm the top meditator, I'm the top wise person. So there's actually research showing this that
Yeah.
that mindfulness practice can produce egoic attachment when it's supposed to do the opposite. But that's not all mindfulness, and it's the way you do it. You could do mindfulness that's much more about non-attachment, focused on no self or the emptiness of things or things like that. You could deliberately or transience, the transience of things that we're attached to.
Mm,
So mindfulness is familiar to people. So now we're just saying, well, how would we refocus that attentional process to promote non-attachment?
yeah. You know
Same
what?
thing with values, like value clarification. Like you could say, I on that website nonattachment.com, I have a values card sort, and I have like the normal values, but then I also have things that are very attached to me, like having more money or
Oh, cool.
having more prestige and stuff. So people can sort, and they hopefully those attachment related values or preferences will be much lower than the other things. So that's a value clarification where you're starting to see, well, maybe shopping and spending all my money and being in debt is taking away from these other things.
Yeah.
So that's value clarification, right? So these are process-based approach allows you to use things that are familiar to you. You don't have to make up a whole new set of things. That's really important.
Well, I guess, okay, so when you say the three processes that could maybe explain most things, right? So delusion, um, and then, which is like fusion, and then attachment and avoidance. I think it's a
Yep.
convenient example because it's not two things and then we're adding a third. It's like 17 things and we're adding an 18th. Or like, I mean, and that's if we want to be like liberal and only use like that task force's names of processes and they include self as context. So I don't know. Like we could say that there's all these different protocols for all these different syndromes, but there's a limited set of key processes. But then
Yep.
what is the criteria
That's
that
right.
empirically defines if something has been validated as a process, given that we're looking at individual people across time and that they have different responses to certain questions? I that list could go
Yeah,
on and on and on and on. And
it
so, okay,
is,
so
but the good news is we're humans and it's not infinite. So it's nothing close to infinite.
well,
It's
but
we are
processes are
symbolic
symbolic.
creatures, so that gives us something in common, right? We transformation stimulus function means symbols become powerful and we lose contact with the difference between symbols and reality. So that's true for
Mm,
all humans. That's nomothetic. That's a nomothetic conclusion. All of us do experiential avoidance. All of us are experiential attached in different ways. So
mm,
those are I think those are pretty universal. Now the specific ways it's happening, whether it's because you're a hoarder or maybe you're just obsessed with being right and you're online all the time arguing with people, or maybe your thing is gambling, or maybe your thing, that's completely different and idiographic, right? And then you have your particular life circumstances. So it does get really interesting. But you look at movies, right? There's so many different movies and they're making new movies every year. Like, but there's probably only seven basic plots.
yeah,
Like there's people
probably.
who have made that argument. Like, you know what I mean? There's a book called The Seven Basic Plots, and it really does summarize a lot of plots. There's some that don't fit in, but mostly they fit in. But that doesn't mean that you can't have Quentin Tarantino making a movie that's totally different from anything else that's come before, but it's still, there's still a commonality there. And so
So,
with process-based approach, you want to have the commonality, you want to see the commonality, but still allow for diversity and creativity with
mm,
people, with developing therapies, all that stuff.
yeah, and
But it's a way
if
of
process,
not making it just infinitely spread, to lots and lots of new terms, new terms, new terms. What you're describing, that kind of endless confusion, it's the opposite of that.
yeah, because in theory, we're going to be narrowing down. Like if PBT is going to be science-based, we're going to help clinicians learn how to use processes in more effective ways because they're already using it.
Yeah.
As you said, everyone's avoiding, everyone's fused, everyone's doing these kinds of things. So processes are in play regardless if we want it or not. But what's interesting, or what is of use, is that as a science, we've become better at making reads and then
Yeah.
having those reads be tied to interventions and then having those interventions tied to better outcomes than what we've been
Yep.
reading and intervening on
Exactly.
before. So, but
Yeah.
when I describe my example with the TikTok, for example, I think it's interesting. I think it's important that it's kind of hard to make an avoidance read or a non-attachment read, or some people might be making reads around self-compassion. I'm just being critical of myself. I don't know, holding myself to too high
Yeah.
standards, or
Sure.
others would do a reappraisal thing, or
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe are you living by your values and what's worth I don't know. So like, and I guess I struggle with this idea of like, well, how can we make a read either through a
Yeah.
clinical judgment or through a measure or something that's like a tool that scientists can use
Yeah.
that will give us some sign that a non-attachment intervention will be more effective than targeting something else. Do you have any
Yeah.
idea? I know that research doesn't exist, but do you have any thoughts or
Yeah.
ideas on
Yeah.
how we
I
can
mean,
get
I
there?
think I'm looking for like, so we're writing a process-based therapy book now, and it's really focused on emotion and affect. And for attachment, I'm looking for things that look more like dominance, more in the anger domain, more in the appetitive, addictive element. Like, you know, are they trying to be right? Are they, addicted to outrage? Are they chasing more? I'd be looking for things like that that are repetitive. And we might also look for things that they might be avoiding too. But for if they're stuck, if they're not, um, they have to do something different, right, to improve their
Mhm.
life. So where's that? How are we going to get that search space? Well, if I see a lot of dominance, a lot of will to power, I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of stuff, the stuff I see in higher performing groups, actually, less so in clinical samples, maybe, but in high performance groups, they tend to be more like that. Like, they might actually be offended if you suggested they're being avoidant. And I think it's probably because there is more will to power and dominance based emotion. So affect can be divided into valence, positive, negative, arousal, high, low, and dominance. High dominance would be anger, um, eh, vitality, enthusiasm. There's more dominance motion. Low dominance would be like sadness, depression, like shame,
I've never
and
heard
a
of that
positive
third
ver
axis. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Is
that third axis is important.
are you
Here's
are
a
you proposing that,
here's a
or is
one
this
that
something that?
no, it's established. It's an established
Huh.
taxonomy of emotion. Yeah.
I've definitely heard
So
of
the
valence and activation. So, I mean, I do measures on
yeah,
myself every night, and I measure that. So, and I've been doing it,
dominance is important, man. I think
but
it's
I didn't
important.
hear
Now,
about that
now
in the
here's
model.
so dominance. You can have positive and negative anger and enthusiasm, vitality, that energetic, state. But an interesting, it's there's a high dominance, positive, low dominance, positive affect. Can you guess what it is? It's it's
Calm,
it's positive affect,
satisfaction,
high
maybe.
arousal, but low dominance.
Okay, so positive
Never
affect, high arousal,
arousal,
low dominance.
low dominance. Just to show you that dominance isn't always the good thing to have,
Uh, higher. I was thinking like maybe calm or satisfaction, but that would probably be low
Low
arousal.
arousal, yeah.
So high arousal would maybe be like
I got to get
vitality.
existential now. And
I don't know.
yeah,
Well, low
awe,
dominance. I don't know this concept of
awe,
dominance. Huh?
awe. When you
Oh.
look out on a mountain or an ocean, and it's just like you feel tiny, like nothing,
Mm,
but it's positive. It's like awesome. Or
that's
there
good.
probably is parkour examples at a moment where you've done something and it's just like, holy shit,
Mm,
wow.
mm.
I don't know. Yeah. So I would for attachment, I would look for that dominance element. It's like when men, like if you look at, let's go to a negative domain, men assaulting women, um, rape, really violent things like that. You could try and explain it in terms of, well, this person was fearful and avoidant, they're insecure. But actually, I think it would be more of an aggression, attachment, power thing.
Mhm.
And so I suspect that if you were treating somebody like that, it would be more on that dimension, not on the fear dimension.
And
But
that would lead to
I
better
have to be
outcomes.
shown, I have to show it. It's like, but I'm just trying to open up the space. I want everybody to kind of think about it. And if it is relevant in their area, we could start to research it and figure out how to bring it in a bit more.
Yeah. I think
Hoarding is
all.
another big one. I think would be a lot of attachment there to hoarding. So
Mm,
that's an area that seems obvious to me.
I
But I'll have
think.
avoidance too.
Mm.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I think all hypotheses are game, you know? Like, I haven't seen a randomized controlled trial where PBT focused act is doing better than protocolized act or something, you know? So, the ultimate
Well, it wouldn't
goal.
be PBT focused, it'd be personalized versus protocolized. It wouldn't be
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
PBT
yeah,
is
yeah.
just the ACT is a process-based therapy, so it's the same thing.
Fair, fair.
So
I
it'd
think
have to be you had a
touche.
protocol where everybody got
You're
the
right.
same thing
Yeah, yeah.
versus an intervention where people got more of something than others. So Mike Levin is doing things like this. He's got a whole library of interventions along all the different dimensions, and he's trying to match, what people need with the right intervention. So he's not just giving them the ACT protocol. So that's kind of
Mm.
cool. So that's kind of what's coming, I think, is much more. Not everybody needs structured mindfulness. As a matter of fact, what 60% of people will drop out of such a preparation.
Yeah.
So not everybody needs self-compassion. I mean, that's the assumption. But it's not to say those aren't valuable and important interventions.
Mm.
We're
Mm.
not throwing them out. We're simply saying um, sometimes we need to get the person sleeping 8 hours a day instead of three before we do anything else like that. Maybe that should just be the first thing you do.
Mm.
That's all.
Yeah,
We're
it's
not saying
interesting.
all that.
I have a
Yeah.
friend who's been in this space where they're looking for therapists and they try something and they're just like, oh, that was awful. It was so fucking weird. And then they go here and that didn't work. And then they go here and here. And it just seems like
Mm.
that's the experience for everybody is they gotta like find someone they like and try a bunch of different modalities before they find something that like
Yeah.
works for them. I was hearing this one talk from a guy who's talking about evaluating evidence for treatments. And he was like, you know, and it's very interesting because sometimes your clients will teach you what is effective. And he had this one client who been in and out of inpatient facilities and went through all these different evidence-based treatments and was treatment resistant and stuff like that. And she was in a inpatient facility at one point, and she said, you know, I'm just thinking, this was during a therapy session. I think it was group therapy, or she was with a therapist at some point. She was like, I'm just, I think I'm going to kill myself. She said that to like the therapist, and the therapist leans in, and I think she says like, uh, I think I'm going to try and kill myself or something like that. And something like that. And he was like, I think you are too, you know, or something like that. Like, I don't want to be alive right now. And he says, I don't think you want to be alive either. Something like that. Something very evocative and or very, I guess like
Not
you
expected. Yeah.
you unexpected, right? You wouldn't normally
Yeah.
say that about suicide, where he's like almost like, yeah, I think that this is the path that you're heading down to. Kind of like seems very Marsha Linehan. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah. I was thinking that Linehan preaches that exact thing, that kind of,
yeah.
yeah.
But and then she has this kind of transformation where like that was the seed that started a bunch of like positive growth and because she felt like she was like validated and her struggles were like understood and she wasn't just kind of like pigeonholed into these, you know, protocols or
Yeah.
techniques or something like that. And I just remember thinking that being like, dude, you're telling me that no one validated her feelings? Like, why did that work then? Was it that like she just got a bunch of therapists like couldn't validate to
Because
say the
there's an art to it. There is a real art to it. It doesn't like that. What does it take to create a song or a painting that moves people? That's not easy. It's not just you can't just say you paint this way and the head has to be in this proportion because
yeah.
that's what we're trying to do. But then there's the artist side. So he was using irreverence, and that's a very subtle that's a tricky one to use, and
Yeah.
he did it right. And
Is there
so
any biomarker or like thing that she could have said or anything that a scientist could have caught that would have clued us in that that would have been important for this person to have?
yeah.
Or was it just that they got good sleep last night and that happened to be the thing that they like, you know,
No,
credited
it
to?
probably was that the guy thought she's coming to me. She's already seen six therapists. They've probably already done all that. So you could probably kind of guess that she's already heard all the reassurance, all that, and you could probably guess that people around her panic and freak out when they hear her say that, right? So he's so remember it's the process-based approach to change is an evolutionary principles, variation,
Mhm.
selection, retention. His response was completely different. He knows that if he
That's an
repeats what everybody else
assumption.
would typically do.
I think that's an assumption, but like
I'd be
maybe.
surprised if people were that irreverent normally. I would guess that when somebody says, I'm going to kill myself, it causes more panic than that kind of irreverence.
Mm, mm.
I'm
Maybe,
guessing, and that's probably what
probably.
his guess was. He could be wrong. See, so it's kind of like hypothesis generation. So you got variation, right? But the variation isn't random, but there's not a guaranteed answer either. So we got variation, but we're saying, okay, I bet you she's heard all these other reassuring things. I'm going to try irreverence. I bet that's different. So he doesn't know it's going to work.
Mm,
He lays it out and he watches.
mm.
So maybe Ben, you're looking for answers. It's not going to give you. It's what's going to do is you're going to be doing something different. You're going to help the client to do something different. You're going to have to be doing something different that they don't normally see in their TikTok videos or they
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
from
yeah.
their mom or they hear in culture. You have to do something different, right? Because they're not
Yeah.
here to hear the exact same thing they can get on TikTok. Okay, so he was probably guessing she hasn't, nobody's responded to her this way. And this irreverence means I'm kind of sitting there present with her and acknowledging what she's saying, not just trying to chase it away. Oh, no, you don't want to think that way. Come on. No, you don't believe that. You
Yeah.
don't really, that's, so my guess is he made a guess of what would be different, a different way to respond to her, and he was right. But if he had been wrong, he probably would have changed it up. Probably would
Yeah,
have, if
yeah,
she
of
would have been
course.
like,
And yeah, no doubt. I guess I
because
just,
she started reacting like it was like she got really, I don't know if she got really serious and it looked like she was actually going to think about it and she was going to leave without him having her promise that he wasn't going to do that, then he might have changed his game quite a bit.
yeah. I guess I just look at what you're describing and I feel like there's obviously a lot of clinical skill that's going into what you're describing
Yeah.
and how you're talking about
Yep.
this. And you know, I look at other therapists who are like very expert at what they're doing, and I see a lot of that same more
Yeah.
intuitive, artful skill. And I think about though this idea that we're going to personalize psychotherapy to make it more effective and have better effect sizes. And I think about how that must be just I just struggle to with the idea that we could like catch um, that kind of
Well,
subtleness.
don't think about finding the right answer. Thinking about so it's variation. So we got to do something different. You have to do something different than all those other TikTok people, and nobody's going to
Yeah.
be made better, right? That's probably a not a that's probably a good idea for you to try that. You're probably right. Then selection, does it work? Do you watch? Does it make their life better? And if it does, then retention, we practice it, make it a habit. So the variation, we don't want it to be completely random, right? We want to kind
Mm,
of say, okay, you know what? I'm going to guess this person is self-compassion. They really sound like they got a criticism. Doesn't look like they've ever had somebody kind and soothing. And maybe they could learn to do that. So see, I'm varying. I'm not sure that's the right answer, but I'm the variation isn't random.
mm. So
It's my
it's not
clinical
that we're
judgment
gonna
still.
like we're not it's not that we're just gonna like she's gonna like mutter something and then we're like, ah, a reverence is needed here. But it's more
Yeah,
like
yeah,
we're
exactly.
trying a bunch of different things and we see that certain things work better than others.
It's art. It's like yeah, like I guess unstructured jazz where somebody's playing and then you don't know exactly what you're going to do, but you're going to come in at a certain time and then you're going to pass it off to them. And does it work? Does it not work? But it is variation, but but it's not random.
Mm,
You want it to be less random. Right now, it could be a little bit random. And all that diversity of interventions, I think it's just like how you have so many different. We have the same Earth, same ecosystem, right? But there's so many different animals on the earth, all of them adapting to the earth in different ways, but they're still adapting to the same ecosystem. All this variety of species,
they're adapting
same
to
thing with,
different environments. What do you
yeah,
like?
yeah, they could adapt to, yeah, the environments could be different. But let's say even in the same environment, you have lots of different things like
Yeah, and different niches
same,
and stuff like that. Sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Think of therapy as that they're different kinds of adaptations that are trying to solve the same human problem of delusion,
Mm.
aversion, and attachment. Like there's just it's just like martial arts. There's like 700 different types. They're all trying to solve the problem of how do you fight and defend yourself.
Yeah.
But they look very different, and so it's not like they're all like the same competing. They're like some are coming in more at the social level, some are coming in more at the biological level, some more at the psychological. They're approaching different parts of the story of the elephant, and each blind person is touching a different part of the elephant.
Yeah.
One's got the tusk, and they say that's a snake, and one's got the side and they're saying that's a wall, or something like that. And they're all connected to the same thing, but they're just coming at it from different angles. And I think that's another thing that process-based approaches kind of make clear to me is that it's not a competition a lot of times. We're we're trying to solve the problem of suffering in just in different ways. It's
Mm,
the same problem, same issue, same human.
beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I think this is a good point to wrap up. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Professor
thanks, Ben.
Troche. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's right.
There
Yep.
you go. I got it. I got it.
Yes,
Steve can't get it
indeed.
to save his life, man.
No, I've
Ciarrochi,
given up on Steve.
you giving
He
up?
he he does it deliberately. He's a very naughty person. I think he knows how to say it, but he's never said it right once.
That's funny. Yeah, Steve's he's got a little deviant in him. Okay. Well, thank you so
Yes.
much. Uh, I recommend people read the paper. It was really interesting. It was a lot of fun to read.
Yep.
And check out the website. It's nonattachment.com. Is that correct? Or
Yeah,
not attachment
it's got a
dot org?
dash in it because that's the only one I give. So it's non-attachment.com. And it's just, I guess, an attempt to make it a little bit more accessible.
Well, I think it
We try
did.
to,
The paper's on that website, and also there's some really cool games there on the website as well. Before I went on this
yep.
call, I did one of the little exercises on this call with you, and
Yeah,
I
oh,
think it was
good.
like a social one where it's like getting applause from someone or something like that. I don't know. So I was
Seeking
like,
approval. Oh,
yeah,
you must have
seeking
done that one.
approval.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
I did that one.
yeah.
So I can
Yeah,
recommend it. It's very well built out. And yeah, thank you so much
excellent.
for your time.
All right, thanks, Ben.